Welcome back, everyone, to Shoot to Shit. As always, your boy Lunasty. Joining me today is Nick Dinsmore, also known as Eugene.
Yay!
And his birth name, Nick Dinsmore. Nick, thanks for being here, man.
What did you do to get the name Nasty?
So, I guess random fun fact. So my last name is Luna, and I'm in the Navy. So during my first enlistment, I was one of the gate security, and we had a car pull in, and there was three ladies, and there was three of us guards. We're trying to holler, and there was two decent looking ladies, and they're fighting, who was going to get those. And there was a bigger one in the back. And I was like, hey, there's a big girl. They're like, my boy Lunasty, just on the spot kind of thing. And it just stuck. So everyone was like, yo, we're going out. Take Lunasty with you. He's like,
not bad. I like it.
Bruno Mars will catch a grenade for you. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So I had that nickname for about 10 years now. It's great. So,
well deserved.
So as we said before, myself and a few admin are the administrators for the Walmart We Love Wrestling Facebook page, Instagram page. So our biggest thing is that we just love everything wrestling. All characters, all gimmicks, all kinds of matches. And one of the things that we love are the comedy characters, and the family characters. We had Hector Guerrero on talking about the gobbledygooker. So, man, it's a huge honor for us to have you on. So, again, thank you. And we saw you, I want to say, on the main roster early to mid 2000s, and that's almost 20 years ago. And you would think that you're a little bit older, but you're 45 years young. That's crazy. Still, you just had a birthday last month, man, and it's nuts. Right. How, when you think about it, like I said, it's been almost 2 decades, and you're not that old. So that means like you got at it really young, you got at it quick, and you got to that main level, before a lot of people have gotten to that. So that in itself is just astonishing. And I know you started your career in about 96, and we'll get to that in a second. But like I said, Walmart We Love Wrestling, we'd like to know, before we get into your training and everything, what got you to love professional wrestling?
I watched it growing up as a kid. I watched my first match was, looking back now, it was after WrestleMania 1. It was Saturday night's main event. Piper and Bob Orton had turned on Orndorff. And I remember I turned it on, and Orndorff was chasing Piper through the ring, through the crowd, under the bleachers, down the back hallway. Piper locks himself in the locker room. Orndorff's kicking the door. Next segment, Uncle Elmer gets married. Then it's Hulk Hogan on at the end. And after that, I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so taking you from then to when you started to train, how did you find out about the school that you went to?
So I went to a high school in southern Indiana, which is in the Louisville, Kentucky metropolitan area. Okay. I was in the homecoming court, although I did not win homecoming king. And when they announced me for the presentation, they said he wants to be a WWF at the time wrestler. And a couple days later in the hallway, a girl that was a couple years younger than me walked up to me and said, my dad has a wrestling school like in the same town that we were in. Really? So at the end of my senior year, I went to the Nightmare Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling, and that's how I got started.
Awesome. And how was that, one? And two, like, what was the fee like, and how did you end up paying for it, if you did?
I think it was either $3,000 or I think it was $3,000 but it might have been $5,000. I can't remember, but I just made weekly payments. I had a job as I made kitchen cabinets in a factory, and I was going to college at the time, so I would go to college a couple hours in the day, work a couple hours. At night, I would go to the wrestling school, and I just made payments. But it was a real small building in Jeffersonville, Indiana. There's probably anywhere from 6 to 10 people to 15 people in class at a time, and the Nightmare Danny Davis was the trainer, and every Sunday they would have a live event at the training school. At a certain point, we moved to a little bit bigger of a building. And if you've seen any of the videos, this is the building that there's a column like right in the middle of the room. It's like the ring sat against two walls, and then there was a column which they had OVW on. And that's where I did most of my wrestling there. Eventually, they moved to the new Davis Arena in Louisville, which is where they still, OVW still has TV tapings and training today.
Awesome. Ed, did you do, so that was pretty much your home promotion. Did you do any, traveling during that time before, being called up to the main roster?
At a certain point, well, back then it was a little bit different because back then you were either affiliated or you were an outlaw promotion. Affiliated meant affiliated with the NWA. And if you weren't affiliated with the NWA, supposed to be any promoters or wrestlers that work for a non-affiliated promotion would be blackballed. But this was towards the end of that kind of stronghold that NWA had on all the promotions. And there was a small, I don't even want to call it promotion. There was a monthly show in Central City, Kentucky, ran by Shelby Adcock. And that was the first place that I got to wrestle. And I remember looking at the building. Looking back now, it was a dingy, dirty building and a small ring. But there was like the one light above the ring. And I thought it was Madison Square Garden. And I was like, oh, my gosh. Yeah. But people that I had seen on TV had wrestled there previously and see their pictures on the walls. So it was like that was the first step was wrestling in Central City. Eventually, I got to wrestle for USWA, which was the Memphis promotion. I think the last 8 weeks that the promotion was around, I got to wrestle for them. I would go to Memphis. We would do TV on Saturday mornings, live TV, and wrestle the live events around the territory.
Awesome. And I know you had just a few match stint with WCW at one point. And how did that come about?
So I wrestled on the first Brian Pillman Memorial Show, which was in Cincinnati. And at the time, as far as I know, WCW, WWE, and ECW, those guys were never on the same show. But this was the one show that WCW, WWE, and ECW lent their talent for Brian Pillman. And Stone Cold was there late 96, like right when he was coming up. There was WCW guys, Jericho was there, and I was in the first match. But one of the guys that was there was Terry Taylor, who was in the office for WCW, and he saw me. And from that, I ended up getting booked. He booked me for WCW.
Oh, awesome. And I know you did also with WCW, you did some appearance stuff, like even fast forward, appearance stuff. I remember like his Doink, and I know you've done before Eugene character, done some enhancement matches. So one, I guess, is how were those experiences? And two, how could you describe and encourage other wrestlers who are used as enhancement talent to keep on going?
Right. So started training in 96. 97 wrestled for USWA. 98 and early 99 wrestled for WCW, maybe 13 shows. Terry Taylor moved from WCW to WWE, and he gave me a developmental contract. Nice. And at the time, Danny Davis and OVW had partnered with WWE to train their talent. So I've been wrestling for OVW for 3 years, and now all of a sudden they're the developmental territory training the developmental talent. So I was still wrestling the shows, but now I was under contract. And we would go up from time to time. I was a popcorn vendor in the back that got beat up by Gerald Briscoe for the 24/7 hardcore title once. I was a white coat trying to take Kane away to the insane asylum and got beat up one time. I wrestled a few dark matches, a couple matches that were on Jacked or Metal or whatever the package show was. Yeah. And at the time, I mean, they were using a lot of guys that were under contract for their enhancement talent. I don't know that they do that so much anymore, but at the time it was still cool just to be able to go up there, and get to meet everybody that I saw on TV. And for me, that's the first stepping stone to getting your foot in the door with WWE. If you have the opportunity to be an extra, they call it now, and do enhancement talent or job match or whatever it is, that's how you get seen.
Okay. And that's good stuff here, because a lot of people would see that as like, oh man, I spent all these years doing this, and here I am making somebody look good in 2 minutes. But I mean, that's kind of the purpose of that, and working towards you getting that spot, and somebody making you look good later on in life. It's a revolving door. So I love getting enlightenment on that and for other people. So if we could fast forward now to the Eugene debut. So who originally pitched that idea, and were you always made to be Bischoff's nephew on that?
So I was signed to a developmental contract in 1999. Mm-hmm. And at the time, WWE was signing the talent that they found, that they scouted, sending them to Louisville. I was already at OVW, so I was kind of like an in-ring coach, but in my opinion, at the time, I didn't think I would make it to TV. I felt like I was an OVW guy that was a utility guy to help enhance and teach the crop of guys that came. The first crop of guys was Brock Lesnar, Batista, Cena, Randy Orton, Victoria, Shelton Benjamin, Rico Constantino. I felt like it was my job to help teach these guys so that they can then be stars. Mm-hmm. And at times, the agents would come down, Fit Finlay, Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko, and they would, kind of just peruse and see what's going on. Every now and then, the writers would come down, and people would pitch their ideas. And after a couple years, like I'm signed in 99, I debuted as Eugene in 2004. So I was 5 years under developmental, which at the time was unheard of. Most guys were 6 months to a year, just teach them how to, and then put them on TV. Mm-hmm. But like I said, at the time, I didn't think I was actually going to make it to TV. But at a certain point, I really started to understand and grasp the business. The light bulb came on, and I became very good. And I realized that, there's certain characters on Raw or SmackDown at the time that they did not have. And they had Hurricane, who was a kid's character, but he was on SmackDown, and the brands were split. So I knew that they didn't have a kid's character. At the time, it was after Austin, it was after NWO, it was after Goldberg, but everybody still wanted to be a cool, strong heel doing big moves and not selling. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do the complete opposite. I wanted to be an underdog, sympathetic babyface that did comedy. And it was one of the trainers was Rip Rogers, the hustler Rip Rogers. His son has autism, so he pitched an idea where, what if you're a character that has difficulty talking to people, he can't really tie his shoes, can't put a square peg in a square hole, but the minute the bell rings, he can do everything he's seen on TV flawlessly and perfectly. And the agents came down, Arn came down, I pitched it to him. Well, I don't think, WWE doesn't do that kind of stuff anymore. Okay, all right, whatever. A couple months go by, the writers come down. I pitched it to the writers. Oh, Vince wouldn't like that. We don't do that kind of stuff. Okay, whatever. And it got to a point where I saw a lot of guys complain and then get called up. Mm-hmm. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I thought, I've never complained. I've always been a company man. I've always shown up on time, done what I'm told, keep my mouth shut. So one day I told Doug Basham, I said, I think I'm going to quit and try to go to Japan, which I had no desire to do that because I was sleeping in my own bed every night. The territory, we didn't drive more than an hour and a half to a show. It was awesome. I was a top guy. It was perfect. But I wanted to see if I could break through that next level. So I told Doug, I said, I think I'm going to try to go to Japan. Doug told Dean Malenko. Dean tells Johnny Ace. Johnny Ace tells Vince McMahon. All of a sudden, I end up in a meeting with Vince McMahon and Stephanie. And Vince goes, I want to get back to character-based wrestling. And this was probably 8 months after Rip Rogers had kind of given me the idea. So I just pitched the idea, just like I told you, the same thing. He goes, well, great, we'll start on Monday. And at that point, I was like, oh, my God, who is this character? Because nowadays, they would do a big character research. There's a little more to the story. Stephanie's sitting there, and she's kind of like, well, that's interesting. We can put that character in these kind of situations with these kind of people. And I can't remember what city it was in, but Austin was there. He came back for a reason. Austin walks into Vince's office, and Vince goes, Steve, have you ever seen this guy wrestle? Looks at me and goes, no, I don't think I have. Well, I knew that Nightmare Danny Davis and Steve Austin had been friends in the Dallas territory, and Danny had kind of helped Austin. Austin was thinking about quitting at a certain point, and Danny said, no, don't do it. You're going to be a huge star. And a month later, WCW called for him. Mm-hmm. So I told Austin at the time in that meeting with Vince, I said, yeah, I was trained by Nightmare Danny Davis. And Austin goes, well, then you're probably one of the best. And it was like that vote of confidence that Vince was like, all right, let's do it. But then the tough part is, like I said, I didn't know who the character was. Like now in NXT, they would do a comprehensive character archetype research, and they would have multiple chances to attempt to perform the character and tweak it. And I was literally just thrown out there because I think that they didn't think I could pull it off.
Okay.
I felt it was, and you've probably seen them do it before. They put something out there and it doesn't work, and then they release the guy. Because it was really time to, get or get off the pot, right? It was time. I've been there for 5 years, and I could stay at OVW, but it was time for me as my attempt to go to WWE. Is like it was time, or it was time to step out of the way and let someone else go. The first time I wrestled was a live event before Eugene was ever on TV. Mm-hmm. It was in St. Louis, and it was an afternoon show. It was an afternoon show because NCAA playoffs were that night. So it was about, I don't know, maybe 6,000 people were there. Never seen Eugene before. I wrestled Lance Cade, and thank God I wrestled Lance Cade because Lance knew how to wrestle with a gimmick character. Mm-hmm. Most guys will want to go out and just have a wrestling match, but you can't do that with a gimmick character. You have to tailor your match around the character's strengths. And Lance went out there, and we had a wonderful match. He ended up beating me up at the end and beating me. And at the end of that match, they were chanting my name, chanting Eugene's name. And for someone who's never been on TV, to have a WWE crowd chant your name is like a big thing because that just doesn't happen.
Of course. And was that Eugene anywhere close to what became that character? Like you were saying, you pitched some of the the autism stuff was pitched to you. So was that part of your first match that you had with Lance Cade?
Well, and nothing was ever really pitched to me. Rip gave me the idea.
Yeah.
And I just formulated the character around it. And then when I wrestled Lance, I just went out there, and in my head, it was never said Eugene was anything. They just said Eugene's a special little boy. So I went out there, and I tried to think, how did I feel about wrestling when I was a kid? What raw emotions about anything when I was a kid? If I was excited, yay! If I was scared, getting nervous, and I just tried to upplay it, and then I pulled a little bit of comedy spots that nobody else was doing at the time because everybody wanted to be serious wrestlers. Yeah, and it just all fell together. I came back from that match with Lance, Hunter, Stephanie, Fit, Arn, all of them standing ovation behind the curtain. And Triple H was like, you totally committed to the character. And that's what you have to do. And sometimes you will see the guys that don't, because as fans, we can sniff out insincerity very quickly. Mm-hmm. Guys that don't believe in what they're doing, it comes across. And I just went out there and I just fully immersed myself in Eugene. And at the time, I really didn't know who he was, but I just did what felt right and just did it 110%. And, what came out was Eugene.
Completely worked, and it was amazing. Were there any limitations or rules given to you about who you could imitate whenever you got to the point where you were imitating some of your favorite wrestlers, like Hulk Hogan, all that stuff? Where did they say stray away from imitating this person or this move or anything like that?
No, not really. And that's something that kind of developed. It was kind of like, at first my thought was Eugene was idiot savant, and he could do all this wrestling, chain wrestling, which is what I liked. And he had he knew all the wrestling trivia. So if I was ever on an interview, I could say, oh, well, back in 1962, this match happened and blah, 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 some obscure fact. But as it kind of progressed, when I started doing other guys' moves, that's when the crowd really cheered. So it was like, okay, well, let's go in that direction. And then it was like, the greatest hits. Let's do Junkyard Dog. Let's do Hulk Hogan. Let's do The Rock. Let's do Stone Cold. What do the people want to see?
Yeah. Okay. So, like we were mentioning earlier, it's a family character. It was a comedy character. Good stuff. Previously on our show, we've had, like I said, Hector Guerrero with talking about gobbledygooker. We had Zach Gowen, who you teamed up with at one point, and James Ellsworth. We had James Ellsworth. So you're along that line where, like I said, when you got called up, you got thrown into some pretty main event type spots, and you got to work with some of the biggest names. So how was that whenever you got called up to the main roster and got to work people like Triple H and got to work with like The Rock, and when you got paired with William Regal?
Like, one thing I had going for me was the writers, especially the writer Brian Gerwitz, Gerwitz, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He was the main writer for Raw. He wrote a lot of the Rock stuff. He knew how to write for Eugene. He saw that character and he goes, okay, I can write for that. Boom, boom, boom. And I tell guys now, if you have a character but none of the writers can write for it, it's worthless. Because you need somebody to be able to say, okay, I can write this character into a situation that, you know, that we can put on TV. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I'd been in OVW for 5 years helping develop all the talent. So I knew 90% of the locker room already. I helped train them. Some of the top guys I had not, but I was the top guy in OVW. So the minute I got there, it was just the exact same thing. And like I said, I don't think that they thought that I could really perform it as well as I did or be on that level. But every time they gave me a little bit, I hit a home run. So the next week, let's give them a little more, hit a home run. I had met William Regal. I knew William Regal. Regal and Rip Rogers were roommates in Germany way back in the day. So we had a little bit of commonality there. The minute I get there, Regal goes, hey, why don't you ride with me? So then we started riding together. And it was brilliant to put me with Regal because it was automatic odd couple, you know, different ends of the spectrum. And they made Eugene Bischoff's nephew, which gave Eugene instant credibility. All of a sudden, you know, he okay, I got it. He's in the family. Mm-hmm. And Bischoff wasn't. He was all about it. He was okay. Let's do it. Let's run with it. He wasn't resistant or anything, and it really helped me because everybody embraced the character. They wrote well for it. They gave me the spots, and I could perform. Mm-hmm. So it was just like I don't know. It was. I tell people at that point I wrestled for I think 8 years. So it was like an 8-year overnight success.
Yeah, yeah. And so with that being said, I guess give us a little insight on how you felt and how it was when you got that WrestleMania moment with Hulk Hogan against, Muhammad, Hassan, and Daivari.
So I had gotten injured in January. I tore my patella tendon, and I was doing therapy, doing rehab, got the surgery by Dr. Andrews in Birmingham. WrestleMania was late March, early April-ish, and I really wasn't cleared to wrestle. I wasn't 100%, but they called me. Do you think you could do this with Muhammad Hassan and Hulk? Yes, of course I can. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it was just, it was awesome. I mean, I trained Muhammad Hassan. When he first started training, he came to Louisville. I trained him, and then he got signed. There was a group of guys that moved to Louisville with the intention of getting signed, and there were guys that WWE found and brought to Louisville that were already signed. Muhammad Hassan, Mark Capani was one that came down there, and I helped train him, so I knew him very well. And so it was just, and the minute Hulk's music hit, it was a Staples Center in L.A., those people went bananas, and it was awesome. That was a high point, one of the highest points of my career, definitely a WrestleMania moment.
Yeah, you could just see, looking back at that, people were everywhere in the audience singing that theme song, and Eugene all excited, doing the ear thing and the flex with Hogan. But that's really cool to hear the part where, like I said, you help train them, and it's just like a bunch of friends in the ring just entertaining and having a good time in front of everybody. And that's kind of, what this is all about. If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and read off some of these questions that the admin that could not make it tonight have lined up for you.
Go ahead.
Let's do that. So this one is so these three are from the admin Jewbag. So
okay.
Jew wants to know, what was the worst interaction that you've ever had with the fan due to the nature of the Eugene character?
So I really didn't have any negative interactions with the fans. When Eugene first started on TV, I think there was some media outlets, some newspapers, radio DJs that were kind of like, what's WWE doing now? What's going on? What's up with this stuff? But the minute Eugene had his first match and he won, then everybody realized, okay, this is an underdog story about a boy that's achieving his dream. And all the fans were on board. Yeah. That was the first step. I wrestled Rob Conway in my first match on TV and won, and the fans went crazy. And then each week there would be more signs that you would see Eugene. I paid to see Eugene because at the time it was a character that was completely different. It'd been the same kind of thing over and over, and all of a sudden it was a splash of something different. Everybody goes, I want to see that. I want to see more of that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure like any of the questions are gonna get to it, so I'll just mention that now. It would probably reflect different in today's day and age, but like even looking back at the time, I'm not sure some of that. Uh, how do I say this? You know, something happens, you're like, oh, that didn't age well. I don't think of that whenever I look back at some of the Eugene stuff, if that
Well,
makes sense.
well, first off, in my opinion, WWE can do anything and make it right.
Mm-hmm.
They took the mask off of Kane and made people understand why. I didn't think they could do it. Then they put it back on.
Mm-hmm.
And when Eugene first started, like I said, there was a little bit of backlash from media people. But then since then, I've gotten more positive affirmation from people. Fans would come up, my younger brother has special needs, and you gave him inspiration. I want to thank you. You know, my son, you know, he told me that he could do anything because Eugene could.
Yeah.
I think it could translate very easily today because WWE could do it right, because they always seem to be able to do it right. They can take something so controversial and then get people up in arms, but then whenever they put that hook in there, it's like, okay, now I get it. All right, that's right.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely, seeing that side of it, and that makes sense. I didn't even think about that before, but you know how just like I said, today's day and age, you know, everyone being woke, you know, they'll take something that's interpreted a certain way and just be like, oh, what are they doing there? But like I said, what you said makes sense, because like I said, whenever I look back at all the Eugene stuff, it's good stuff. It's
mm-hmm.
good.
I mean, I was representing a portion of the world, a portion of America that normally isn't represented, especially in pro wrestling. And you know, that community finally got to say, oh my gosh, there's somebody like me up there. I can do this. I can do whatever I want to do because Eugene did it.
Yeah. And that's awesome. Question 2 from Jubag is there any truth to the story of a Eugene heel turn where he was going to reveal it was all a work?
So yes and no. We tried to turn Eugene heel, but it didn't. I don't know. It didn't take off, and that might have been my limitations as a performer, or me not wanting to turn Eugene heel. I turned on Hacksaw, and then I had one match on Sunday Night Heat against Val Venus, and it just kind of fizzled out because people were like, why is Eugene doing this? I didn't turn on anybody. I love Hacksaw, but I didn't turn on anybody I didn't turn on anybody that was over. If I would have turned on Shawn Michaels,
yeah,
people would have hated me. But I turned on Hacksaw, and it was just kind of like, well, Eugene's angry, and I don't know why, you know. But there were talks about, let's pull the curtain back and say, oh, this was all a ruse, and I'm really this guy. But it was thought that we shouldn't do that, because anytime that we have a gimmick character going forward, the people might think, well, is this guy working us or not?
Yeah, kind of like the Luke Gallows character.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So his third question, you might have cleared it out, but if you wanted to give a little bit more insight, or if you had anything more, he just asked, were there any regrets for doing the character and how it was presented?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The one regret that I have, right? So I had my knee injury. I had surgery in Birmingham. That was in January of 2005. Then Vince tore both quads in the Royal Rumble, remember?
Yes.
And he had surgery in Birmingham. And I knew he had surgery. And I knew where the hospital was. I was in Birmingham. So I just drive to the hospital, walk right up to his room, peek my head in. Nobody was in there but him. And I was like, hi, Vince, I just want to let you know, I'm in town in case you need anything. If you need me to run an errand or get you something. I knew that he had somebody there that could have done that. But I just did it. And I was so nervous, and I was like, okay, thanks. And I left. I should have sat a chair next to his bed and just talked his ear off until he forced me to leave.
Yeah.
That's what I should have done, because there were so many questions I had. I wanted to talk wrestling so bad with him and just talk his ear off. But first time I've ever seen him a little bit unshaven, like a little bit 5 o'clock shadow, and I could tell he was a little bit like, yeah, well, thank you. A couple of days later, Stephanie calls me one morning and says, hey, thank you. That really meant a lot. We really appreciate it. But yeah, I wish I would have just stayed longer and just picked his brain and just asked him every question that came to mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as like a talent and reverting back to the We Love Wrestling, just being a fan.
Being a fan, exactly.
That would have been really cool, yeah. Agree. So next set of questions is from the admin Cephas, and he has 4. First one is, how much influence did you have in your merchandise? And it's because of your uniqueness is why he purchased it. And the main example was he says it's the first ever Inside Out shirt that a talent has ever had.
So I had a red jacket. It was like the 80s, whatever, athletic. I called it a job guy jacket.
Yeah.
But I wanted to wear it inside out because Eugene would just wear it inside out. But you really couldn't tell. So Triple H gave me the idea, why don't you put your name on the back of it so that when you turn it inside out, your name's backwards and then the tag sticks out. Okay. And as far as the merchandise goes, from my perspective, they would bring me 4 or 5 or 6 different ideas. And hey, what do you like? What do you think? Well, I like this part of this one and this part of this one, and just kind of put it together. I mean, I had a little bit of influence. As you progress and get more merchandise, I think you get a little bit more input. But I was just excited to have a T-shirt and an action figure.
Yeah. So with that first one, it was more like, hey, you've done this. We think this will be a good for the Eugene. So it's kind of like a pick and choose, like, I like this one kind of thing.
Yeah, they brought the idea of the merch to me. Hey, we got an idea where we put the shirt inside out and the tags on the outside. Beautiful. It works. Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly what Eugene would wear.
Yeah.
The second one is getting into that, and I see a few things that you have here. So it makes sense. Do you have a merchandise collection? And so what is your favorite piece?
I've collected a lot of merchandise over the 20 some odd years. I've given some of it away, donated some of it. I've sold some of it. I don't know. I mean, all of it's really cool. I've got the memories and the pictures,
Yeah.
There's no one specific piece of merchandise. It's like, oh my God, this is the Holy Grail. It's all really cool. I had 4 different action figures and had, I think, 3 different T-shirts. I had those big hands, those big inflatable hands that I had those.
Yeah, so it's just mainly you collecting just because you love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like anybody else, a lot of buying and selling.
Yep.
Makes sense. And so he asked if you had any input for the segment with The Rock and Coach on Raw, and if you have any memories from that time behind the scenes.
No, I didn't have much input. Early in the day, La Resistance was Rob Conway and Sylvain Grenier. Sylvain, French-Canadian, he was very good friends with Pat Patterson, also French-Canadian. And Pat came to him and was talking whatever. So Sly comes to me. We called him Sly. They got a good deal for you. He was the first one to tell me. They got a good deal for you tonight. They're going to bring in somebody and make you look good. It's either going to be The Rock or it's going to be Rhino. And not knocking Rhino, but I'm like, that's a pretty big difference right there. We were in San Diego. The Rock was in LA shooting a movie, and I'm like, there's no way he's going to make it. He's unannounced. It was a thing where he might be able to make it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not going to happen. Lo and behold, he shows up. I was like, oh my gosh. At the time, I think I had 6 segments that night. 6 segments out of 13 on Raw.
Wow.
So I had to go run here and talk about this, go run here and talk about this. And Brian Gerwicks and The Rock were going over The Rock's promo. And I'd run to the room, and we go over the promo, and I had one line. And every time we practiced it, I missed it. And they look at me, that's your line. Oh, yeah. Because I was like all over the place. I was scattered. I was running crazy. In the ring, live on TV, Rock's cutting a promo, bop, bop, bop. He just walks by. He puts the mic by his side, and he goes, your line's next, kid, and just fed it right to me. I mean, just such a professional. And, The Rock didn't have to do that. He didn't have to come here and do that. This was probably his off time. He didn't know me. He did it for the business and to help pull someone up.
Yeah.
And that's what guys need to do. And without that segment, I don't think Eugene would have gotten as over as he did. Because after that, after Eugene was friends with The Rock, I mean, the crowd was totally different. And then I was over. I was a made man in Mafia terms, right?
Yeah. Sky being the limit for Eugene.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great. And last question for him was, do you still keep contact with your uncle, Eric Bischoff?
Every now and then, we'll talk every now and then. Maybe I run my own promotion now in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I think it was 2016, 2017. I was on his podcast, not the one he does now, but the one he did before. And he was like, oh, I'd love to come out and see you. So on the podcast, I was like, well, why don't you come out to the show? And he goes, okay, well, I'll do this. I'll come out for free if you just make a donation to a charity. So Bischoff came to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and did a show for us in July, I believe it was 2017. And, I see him every now and then at autograph signings or shows here and there.
That's awesome, just to get both of you guys together like that. And so post WWE, you continued, I believe, for a period of time, the Eugene character as letter U and Gene, and eventually as your real name. So you're still working and still training to this day. Like I said, you're young man, you look good. You look great. So if you were to come back, not as Eugene, as yourself, because you essentially you are a worker, like if they don't bring you back as Eugene and you get to actually be yourself and work a match, one, what is your dream singles match to have now, and what is your dream tag match?
Whoever it's with, it's going to be at WrestleMania, and it's going to be the main event. That's the dream, right? I don't know. I mean, I would love to come back and wrestle as Eugene or as any other character. What I kind of want here, also, like you mentioned earlier, I played Doink the Clown twice. Mm-hmm. And I believe there's only been 6 or 7 people that were Doink the Clown. But Doink the Clown is a timeless character that has been on TV for, I don't know, close to 30 years now. Instantly recognizable, always over, fans cheer for him. Doink the Clown needs to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. That character is Hall of Fame worthy, and all the guys that played that character should then be a part of that Hall of Fame community. So I would love to be able to come back as Eugene or Nick Dinsmore or Doink the Clown. But like I said, I think Doink the Clown should most definitely be in the Hall of Fame. Nasty. You know what the best part about having your own action figure is?
You can make it happen.
You can play with yourself in public.
Definitely Eugene quote, I feel. But you were actually, so I didn't get to meet Matt Bourne, but you're actually, I guess, now that you mentioned, the third person who's played Doink that I've met before. So oh man, I can't remember the first guy, and it sucks that I had a brain fart, but
Lombardi did it, Steve Kern did it, one of the Headbangers did it, and somebody recently, I think, did it. And then it was Ray Apollo did it. You probably met Ray Apollo.
There were definitely older gentlemen. Like I said, I know one briefly did it for one or two occasions, but Dusty Wolf. I met Dusty Wolf.
Yeah, I had Dusty Wolf there also. Yeah, I know Dusty.
Way back when, like I said, over 10 years ago, when I had my brief 5-year stint on the Indies. He's out of Texas, so I wrestled out of Texas. And
I wrestled an indie show in Germany. And it was a triple threat match. Dusty Wolf was Doink the Clown against Eugene against the Honky Tonk Man.
Really?
And you talk about 3 guys that just wanted to go out and have fun.
Yeah.
We ended up just singing the Honky Tonk Man song 3 times, and the crowd sang with us, and everybody loved it.
So I guess a wrestler's insight, I want to know, how many bumps were taken that night?
0. Bumps are for marks. Bumps are for marks. That's what I always say.
So, like I said, especially being in with Dusty. Great guy, man. I loved him.
Good dude.
Before, we cut out here, before we take it home, I guess, do you have any advice for wrestlers coming up, whether they be single or tag team?
Man, it's really be persistent. It's, get as much good education as you can. You learn the most when you're in the ring in front of a live audience with somebody that has more experience than you. Mm-hmm. And the art of being able to go out and call it in the ring is sometimes getting lost because guys want to plan each and everything. And you have to be able to do that because if you're on WWE TV, you're going to have to plan everything and do it so the cameras can get it. But you also have to be able to read the crowd, feel the crowd, know what they want to see. And it's just get experience. It's be persistent. It's, find a mentor, someone that has been where you want to be, that you can bounce ideas off of. And people can do that if they come to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and train with Nick Dinsmore at Midwest All Pro Wrestling.
That'd be the best option, I feel, that somebody can get out
Absolutely.
there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another question that we had from a fan was, and I have yet to check myself because we get a lot of cameos done for the Facebook page. They said that you do not have a Cameo account. So they were wondering where they could go to acquire a video shout out or something to the gist of that from Nick Dinsmore or Eugene, if possible.
Yeah, I don't have a Cameo, but I could set that up. My promotions website is MidwestAllPro.com, MidwestAllPro.com. And I have some of my merchandise on there, but I could definitely put some kind of video shout out or a Zoom call that we can negotiate, something like that. I'll try to do that this week, but MidwestAllPro.com for all of your Midwest All Pro and Eugene merchandise.
Awesome. And I was actually about to get to that. So the website, like you said, MidwestAllPro.com. I know you are on Twitter there as well at Midwest All Pro. And if the same Twitter guys, I'm going to say for serious inquiries only, for booking information, that is on there as well. I believe that is MidwestAllPro@gmail.com. Everything else, like Mr. Dinsmore said here, the website, check that out. Definitely will get with the fans on that. And actually in the Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, the Twitter handle is the letter U, so U and then Gene, so Eugene Dinsmore is the Twitter handle, and I believe you're still active on your YouTube, the Nick Dinsmore. Is that correct?
Yeah, I really like YouTube. That's probably my favorite. The Nick Dinsmore YouTube channel and the Midwest All Pro YouTube channel. The Nick Dinsmore just went over 10,000 subscribers, so I was really excited about that. And the Midwest All Pro YouTube channel is where we film all of our matches and some training sessions and some behind-the-scenes stuff, and I'm trying to build that. And I really enjoy the YouTube.
Awesome. So, once again, guys, like we are going to have all of that information down in the link so you guys can take a look at that. But please, support the Midwest All Pro. It's been a crazy year, and Nick, we appreciate you taking the time to do this. Like I said, we are huge marks, as you know. We're called Walmark. And it's one of our favorite characters, and I'm trying to contain it all right now. But the other guys were just stupid excited. Like I said, one was having difficulties, and one got called into work. So we have lives, but they were just as excited, man. Thank you so much for this.
Well, people should take a trip out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It's the Mount Rushmore state. We're not far from Mount Rushmore. You can check out that national landmark. Check out one of our live events. July is usually our biggest event, and it's a really great place out here. Sioux Falls is the best little city in America, and Midwest All Pro, we call it MAP because we are putting pro wrestling on the map.
And I believe it. So while I have you live, we're getting the invite. Could I do maybe commentary, an interview, or something like that come July if I were to make the trip down to Sioux Falls?
Absolutely. Do you want to be JR or King?
Definitely JR. Definitely JR.
There you go.
Give me King. I want to say puppies once. All right, Mr. Dinsmore, we appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody.
Your dream to become a professional wrestling superstar, manager, or referee? Well, you can make that dream a reality by training with Midwest All Pro Wrestling. Learn from former WWE superstar and NXT coach Eugene Nick Dinsmore. He's trained such stars as John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Braun Strowman, and many more. Nick will teach you to perform every move and counter. He will help bring your character to life, and then you could be standing in the middle of the ring with your hand raised in the main event. Classes are training right now, so go to MidwestAllPro.com and click on training to enroll today.